idea. Now that's an idea. Now that's an idea.
And welcome back to Now That's an Idea, Te Tiriti's own podcast where we look at good ideas. But a quick note, this is actually our last week talking about politics, because this is not a show about politics. This is Te Tiriti's podcast. Let's jump into it.
Oh, kia ora and welcome. Today I'm joined by Mateawa Keelan. Thank you so much for being on the show. How's the electioneering going? Any crazy things happening on the election trail so far?
Not really crazy, but it's really interesting to hear what the other candidates have to say, and what the whānau have to say. The whānau have turned out. So we were at the radio station on Sunday. A few people there, but we had over 2,000 views at the time. Yesterday I checked and there'd been 10,000 views, so pretty good coverage.
Wow. Which radio station was that on?
Radio Ngāti Porou.
Oh, yeah, cool. I'll have to check it out. That sounds awesome. And so before we get into a bit of a kōrero about your idea, do you want to give just the people a bit of a background of who you are and where you're based, what you've been up to in life?
Yes, very. I've learned to do a 2-minute wrap up. Ko te ahia te atua te maunga, ko te makatote te awa, ko te aitanga a mate te hapū, ko Ngāti Porou te iwi. Kia ora, I'm Mateawa Keelan, born and raised in Ruatoria. I left Ngata College when I was 16 to work in the Wellington region. I came home about 25 years ago with my husband, and we live here in Hiruharama, Ruatoria, with my husband and 9-year-old mokopuna. And he attends Hiruharama Kura. We're farmers and also have a small earth-moving business.
Yeah,
So
kia
that's
ora.
me. Kia ora.
How's life going up in Ruatoria? I've been up there a few times in the recent past, and it's just such a magical place. You know, obviously it's got some challenges going on, but I think in terms of the people and the landscape, it's just, I don't know, it's really moving in a lot of ways.
Yeah, passing through, it's like there's nothing happening. But at the grassroots level, we've got a lot of whānau actually wanting to be creative, create their own things and be able to run small businesses and enterprises, and actually are looking at ways to be self-sustainable. The weather events and COVID brought out in us a bit of resilience that, we don't want to go back to the way we were, not prepared for things like that happening again. So a lot of kai resilience, a lot of people growing their own food, which is great because a lot of it is organic, although it's not classed as such. But, we don't use any of the other what the large-scale commercial growers would use. We also are looking at we run markets as well. That's an opportunity for whānau to come along and sell their wares and buy stuff that they want to have and just keep our little economy going in our community. So we're quite busy out here in that way, and the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because that's my passion, is Māori business development.
Yeah. Well, and you can think about Ruatoria being so cut off and independent. You can think about it in a negative sense, like, there's not this, there's not that. But on the flip side of that, it's like how much more like you're so independent and free. Like if you, I don't know, but there's maybe not my favorite person up the coast, I think, is Bub Jews. I don't know if anyone, I'll put up a link to his house, but he's just painted his whole house and there's like beautiful colors. And it's just like, that's what you could do on the coast, because you don't have neighbors that are going to complain about if your house is like looking a bit funky. You just do what you want.
Yeah, that's I think that is a beauty about us up here. We get to express ourselves and we get to think about how we're going to be better. So, we're quite creative. We look at ways that we don't need to be able to be so dependent on the grid, on electricity and on all this recycling and things like that, and we kind of get things done.
Yeah, which I think all of us could maybe take a little leaf out of your book and Ruatoria. And so what was the point where a thought came in your head? You're like, all right, I need to get on council and, help be a driver for change. What was the idea there?
I got hoha, and that means, I got really, wow, I got brassed off because I have one of the family-owned land blocks that we have, our road gave way, so we couldn't actually get into that land block to bring cattle to sale or to do anything. And I approached the council, and they said, "Oh no, our road ends just." It was like 100 meters before this actual drop off. That's hoha, because you used to go right up to our gate before. And then, so I got told by someone else, "Oh no, we don't have the money to do it." And I wasn't happy with that. I got angry again and went back in, and then I was told, "Oh, we can do a quick fix." And so they did a quick fix. And 2 days later, the rain came and washed it all away again, and I wasn't happy again. And so I thought, quick fixes are not going to work. I really don't like what's going on, and the only way to try and get some changes or to find out what's happening and how I can change it or get people or have people understand what's going on is to be part of that machine and be able to actually have some influence in turning things the way that go our way and what we need.
There's actually a lot of rural candidates and councillors in the Māori wards, so it's almost a bit of a dual voice, because obviously it sounds like you've got, the rural background that can advocate for that on council.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about this is that we have 11 candidates standing for the Māori ward, but only 4 of us are here based on the East Coast. So if none of us get in, then there won't be an East Coast rural-based voice. And I heard that also at another Meet the Candidate meeting I was at, where a lady stood up and said, "We have no rural voice. We need a rural ward because the farmers don't have a voice." And that actually inspired me to think, well, I'm a farmer, but I was thinking as a Māori, but I'm also a Māori farmer. So I need to be stepping up and actually supporting not only Māori farmers, but all other farmers, not only on the East Coast, but also on the other side of Gisborne, out Te Karaka and out Matawai and places like that the council covers.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of a bit of a challenge to all the rural voters out there that, if you want someone to, speak for you on council, then you got to vote for the right people. You got to you can't just tick the box of whoever's was the rural ward candidate. You've actually got to do a little bit of research.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
We're really lucky because, there's been so much out here. We have we now have social media, and we have the ability to be able to throw up posts, and so people can actually see what we're up to and what we're about a lot easier. And we also have these Meet the Candidates that are going live streamed and also being placed out on posters around the area so that people get to see who you are. We have a lot of avenues to be able to promote ourselves and what we stand for.
Awesome. Now, so if you get elected to council, you're only one of 13, so you can't do anything you want. But if you're elected, what's the one thing you'd like to champion on council? Like the one thing you'd really push for, and what's the solution to that as well?
For me, being Māori and being Māori ward representation, it would be embedding Te Tiriti and he whakaputanga in the local government policies and developing tools that would enable those who are not familiar with these Māori legacies to be able to understand what it's about and how to apply those through the board in their decisions, and also to be able to carry it through to the operational side of the council, so that the people who are actually doing the work on the ground can actually have some tools to be able to allow them to be able to consider these 2 important legacies that have been left behind by our tipuna and implement them that way. You can tell when there has been influence by a Māori culture into different organisations. Some of the general ward councillors who are sitting again voiced that also. This is our second term having Māori ward candidates on the council, and they have been highly appreciative and also supportive of the Māori ward candidates who represented for the last round of council. And they've also been able to give, their voices were saying that they've brought in that Māori influence that have allowed them to consider things in a different way, as to not so much as to what they say, but to the thoughts behind it. The way you actually think about the land, not just as a piece of land, but as a well, for Māori, a tipuna or something that it's an inherently nature of its own. That's some of the kōrero that our existing councillors have had to say about having our Māori wards councillors present.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, when the idea of the Māori wards first came up, well, I wasn't really convinced that by the structure or the need by it. But then, much like the general ward councillors, it seems like it's just been like a success, really, because it almost feels like, 13 people. It feels like there was a rugby team without, like, the backs or something like that. Like there wasn't like it wasn't the right players on the team for the game that was being played. Because if you can't, I don't know, if you don't have a Māori background and you can't think from a Māori perspective, it seems crazy that you're, making decisions for the population, which is 50% Māori. And it just seems like a no-brainer, really. That it makes council work better as well, because then people feel heard.
Yes, having the voice, the rural voice that's Māori on the East Coast is so important for that very reason. We do have the Māori representatives who are Gisborne-based, but for me, and I'm just speaking for myself, there is a difference. There's a difference actually living day to day on the whenua with the whānau and the hapū that are based here is very different from living in the urban areas and coming in and out and saying, oh, what's going on, guys? Or, trying to find out bits and pieces, or having your ear bashed over the phone by someone up here saying, you've got to get on to so-and-so and tell them blah, 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 when they don't fully understand what's going on. For me, that is integral. It's vital that we have somebody on the coast representing the coast.
Yeah, I mean, someone that has to actually drive those roads every day.
Well, yes, and that is one of our standing ovations when these roads are finally, able to be future proofed. Then what are we going to moan about? Well, there'll always be something, but right now I take my hat off to our whānau who drive our coast roads every day from up the East Cape all the way into town and survive, do the do. They actually just get going and just do it.
And so, on your actual idea, what is the specifics of getting those documents into council processes and documents? How do you think that would be done?
They do have a tool that's been developed, and it's called the Compass, Te Tiriti Compass, and it addresses the 4 principles of Te Tiriti, so that in every decision they make, they will look at how those principles need to be considered. It's very clear. For me, more like that needs to be developed in the different procedures to go not just at the board level, but to enable the operational side to be able to have the tools to be able to follow what the governance are doing at the top, to be able to have that filter down in the way that they can actually apply it. Because it's quite different being at a board table and considering decisions as it is to being the CEO and the employees looking at, how do we get that particular idea into place? So the board need to actually look at that as well. It's easy to make decisions based on the Compass framework, but then how do those decisions come down for the operational side to be able to have frameworks as well, and also policies and procedures that complement and align with what they're looking at.
Have you thought about how that would result at down the track? Like, I don't know, what have you got a tangible kind of example of how that might work? Because it's one of those things with council, but by its very nature, it's complex and confusing, and it does so many different things that
Yes.
we don't. It sounds like councillors spend 6 years trying to figure it out. But have you got a kind of idea of how that could work in practice?
Well, it's happened to me just the other day. We have what we call the catchments that are addressing each of the areas where the river has flowed, and, the damages caused by the weather events and whatever's happening there. And hapū identify with, or people identify with those catchments to be involved in making the decisions with council. Well, I discovered the other day that there's a catchment called the Makarika catchment, and there's been talks been going on for maybe 2 months or so between people in the hapū and council about how they're going to address this. Well, the big thing for me was that I own a large block of land, Māori land. I'm a shareholder in a large block of land that's actually affected and is being referred to, and I didn't even know, or none of my whānau know, that this is what they're going to be going up to look at to make decisions on how they're going to future-proof it. So when I found out, I immediately got onto the council, found out who was in charge of this, and had an explanation, said that, oh gosh, well, thank you so much for calling us. Now that we know who you are, I'll send you an email about what we've been doing so far, and would appreciate your thoughts. So that's the kind of the tail doing something and the dog doesn't know, if you want to take that analogy. They've gone through all these things. That they've even identified parts of the land, my land, of my whānau land, that are going to be treated in certain ways, and I have had no idea about it or any input. So I let her know that, on certain terms, that needs to be addressed by our whānau, and then we'll make the decision on what happens. But we need their expertise to tell us what could happen. So that's a perfect example of how operational sides have been told what needs to happen by the governance. They've been given a policy or whatever to work with, and they've gone ahead and just said, oh, we'll just, from my point of view, we'll just call a meeting, see who comes, and we'll, from that area, and we'll get them to make decisions for everybody, because we don't really know who else is in there. I had an apology for not knowing who I was, but we were on the Māori land. Māori Land Court has details of who the different people are who own the different lands in the areas. So, yeah, it's just that way they need to go about it, Ask the Māori Land Court if they don't know. Ask Te Tumi Whenua, Te Tumi Pairoa. They're the Māori land administrators for a lot of blocks. And I'm not sure, who they asked. Maybe they need a cultural person or hapū person in that particular part of the operational side who can actually work with the hapū, and make things a lot easier.
Yeah, well, and it might have been a case where, a person working thinks like, well, this is quite a small issue and it doesn't even really matter if these people don't know. But if you come from like a Te Ao Māori kind of viewpoint, you might think, whoa. Because I've definitely found out working at the Gisborne Herald as a reporter in the past, something that I thought was relatively minor was not relatively minor for someone who was Māori at the time. And you learn very quickly. But like, I guess what you're saying is that mistake could be,
Yeah.
could have not happened if there was maybe a bit more cultural understanding.
That's right. And it's all about us all learning. I mean, like, I'm very forgiving. I realize that wasn't a sincere apology, but, it's not only happening on my whānau and whenua, it's happening on a lot of it, because they want to get the job done. They've been told they need to have these places mapped. They need to have things put in place, possible actions and activities. But yes, we need to take 10 steps back and go back to this, to where we can all start out together on the same page. And so that the whenua owners are actually walking at the same pace as they are. If they have to slow down, that's too bad. There's a saying here that when you're dealing with Māori land, it takes time. It takes time. And, that's what we are here. We're patient because we know that. No one can rush in and give a time frame on how long this is going to take. But when it's done, it'll be done with the support of our whānau, and it'll be done properly, and it'll be a work of art. Everyone will be proud of it. So I'd rather they take the time and have it done, make it future focused, which by the way is my platform.
I think that's a key point to make there, is because, some people might think, just bugger it, rush it, let's get it done.
Yeah.
But then I think that the issue there is if you're not working with the other party, then it's not done. I've got a feeling there's a lot of people in Māori have long memories. And so you might think it's done, but it's not done. And it's just kind of kicking the can down with a lot of those things.
Yeah, it's not forgiven until it's actually addressed properly, and then start back at square one. Things will go a lot faster once we know they've already done it, so we can follow along. But so long as we're involved,
Well,
and that's a big part of Te Tiriti and he whakaputanga, is that partnership, that understanding, and being culturally grounded.
Well, that's the other thing I think. What I think now about Māori wards is that actually decisions made in council have a bit more kind of mana behind them and a bit more, it's actually got some representation of the other half of the population in Tairāwhiti. So there's actually a bit more longevity in decisions. Yeah,
Yes.
perhaps. But
Yes, well, we're all learning, which is great, and for me, it's also it's where the grassroots come in, appreciating these two legacies as a way to actually be able to understand where we're coming from and why the whānau and whenua enterprises are so important. It's important on the, looking at it from another side of the economy, because we do grow economy locally and develop more sustainability and resilience, but also because when we sell our goods to others, who are not local, we are helping the whole country to succeed.
sure. Well, would you now like to do a bit of a pitch for candidate or for voters who maybe aren't quite sure yet about you?
Yes, kia ora. My platform is future-focused whānau and community well-being. For me, this means creating the conditions for the people of Te Tiriti to thrive across generations. It's about strengthening our urban and rural communities to respond to climate change, the economy and social challenges, inclusive of individual, whānau, hapū, iwi and community aspirations for our livelihood and a future for our mokopuna or grandchildren. A council who listen to the voices of working groups involved in driving whānau, hapū and community-led solutions, and who are making decisions that are grounded in mātauranga Māori and Te Tiriti o Waitangi to ensure that our plans for the future reflect who we are as Te Tiriti and where we're going.
Well, now we have our pop quiz, rapid fire answers. Are you ready?
Yes,
All right. Best fish and chip shop in Tairāwhiti.
the Tukumari Bay, the Tukumari.
Wait, is that the Te Puka Tavern or is it?
There's a fish and chip shop next door to the Highway 35 where they sell the power pies.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's
Wait.
right there.
Nice. Do you have a favorite Lord of the Rings character?
Actually, it would be, no, I've forgotten his name. Actually, no, I do, but I'm not an avid follower. So yes, I have followed it.
Whale Rider or Boy?
I can't be drawn on that one because they're both whānau hapū groups that I whakapapa to. I do love that they are so different, yet they still have that Māori in them. Yeah, very close to home.
Very diplomatic answer. And on the coast, what's your trick to getting through the deep dark winter? Or do you just love it?
What do I love? Oh, I do love the cold. Unfortunately, I'm a researcher. I don't know why, but when I decided to get onto the council, all I've been doing is looking at all these plans and all this, who says what and what says, what's going on. So yeah, I just love to get my head onto the internet and find out as much as I can about things.
Final question for you. The decider of the election, power pie, yes or no?
No.
I'm quite surprised. There's actually been quite a lot of people have said no. What's
The Ruatoria mince and cheese. A very, very, basic person. I love my mince and cheese pies.
It's a classic for a reason.
Yeah.
All right, kia ora.
Now that's an idea.